Yes, students, good morning and a very warm welcome to today's class. And you know that today, hopefully, we are going to finish with this play. So we had started it last, we can say that from the beginning of this week, and it's a very lengthy, but it's quite interesting. And each day the climax has been raised up, right? So now we have reached to the end part where Ivan has escaped from the jail and how and he has escaped and this thing has been disclosed in front of all, and now each and every person related to that examination organization is after the thing that ये सब कैसे manage हुआ, how he escaped and where he would have gone. So the only person who knows anything about it is McCleary, but he was hit hard by the things. उसको कुछ बहुत गहरी चोट लगी थी and he was really hit hard. तो अब देखो फाइनली वो सबको कहाँ लेकर के जाता है. Now that is a big thing. So we moving along with that text. तो अब उन्होंने धीरे धीरे what they had started to do, उन्होंने वो जो codes थे they had started to disclose the codes. So now we are going to start with this point. यहाँ से हम इसको start करेंगे. So here this says, अब जब वो वहां से निकले, now see, the governor turned to Jackson and Stephens. I don't need to tell you what has happened, do I? His voice sounded almost calm in the sketching contempt. And which one of you two morons was it who took Ivan for a nice little walk to the main gate and waved him bye-bye? Now he says, गवर्नर कह रहा है जैक्सन एंड स्टीफन की तरफ टर्न होते हुए, आई डोंट नीड टू टेल यू व्हाट हैज हैपेंड. क्या मुझे जरूरत है आप लोगों को बताने की कि क्या हुआ है? I don't think that there's any need that I should tell you anything, because his voice sounded almost calm and in its catching contempt, and he said that one of two of you, आप दोनों में से ही किसी एक ने, one person has taken Ivan for a nice little walk. आप में से एक पर्सन इवान को बड़ी अच्छी नाइस लिटिल वॉक के लिए ले गया टू द मेन गेट्स एंड वेव्ड हिम बाय. कौन है जो यहाँ से उसको जेल से भगा करके और सी ऑफ करके आया है? इतना मूर्ख आप दोनों में से कौन है? आई इतना मुझे मालूम है दैट इट्स वन ऑफ यू. नाउ हु आई डोंट नो. नाउ स्टीफन स्टैमरिंग ही सेज दैट इट वाज मी सर, जस्ट लाइक यू टोल्ड मी, जैसे कि आपने मुझे बोला था सर. आई कुड हैव स्वॉर्न, मैं कसम खा के कहता हूं दैट व्हाटएवर यू सेड टू मी आई हैव डन ओनली दोस थिंग्स, आई हैव फॉलोड योर ऑर्डर्स. He says, what? Just like I told you. You say, and what the hell I told you? Just let me know. So he says, sir, when you rang me and you told me to do so and so. He says, when was that? When did I rang you? The governor's voice was whiplash now. Now governor's voice was just whiplashing because he was shocked. He says that when I gave him the orders, I didn't do that. You know, sir, about 20 past 11, just before. He says, sir, it was just 20 past 11, that is 11:20 ka time tha, just before the close of the examination. You told me so and so. You blithered idiot man, it wasn't me who rang you. Don't you realize? But what was the use? He had used the telephone at that time, but only to try unsuccessfully once more to get through the examination board. He says, you blithering idiot, it wasn't me who rang you. And don't you realize, तुम्हें समझ में नहीं आया उस समय that what was the use to use the telephone at that time, जबकि ये strict warnings थी that we don't need to use the telephones at that time to get through the examination board. He shook his head in growing despair and turned on the senior prison officer. Now, as for you, Jackson, how long have you been pretending you have got the brain? Well, I'll tell you something, Jackson. Your skull is empty. Absolutely empty it is. And it was Jackson who had spent 2 hours in Ivan's cell the previous evening. And it was Jackson who had confidently reported that there was nothing hidden away. And nothing at all. Now he says he just shook his head in despair. That is, he was disgusted, he was sad, and he was really feeling, we can say, disgusted at the thing that has happened. कि उसने ऐसा कुछ नहीं किया, but still the things happened, and that too in such a bad way. Now he says he just shook his head and he just turned on the senior prison officers. He says, now as for you, Jackson, now you tell me, how long have you been pretending you have got brains? बोला, कब से तुम ऐसा दिखाते हो ना that you have lots of brains और तुम बहुत समझदार हो. Well, I am going to tell you something today, Jackson, जिसका बारे में तुम्हें नहीं पता था. And the thing is that your skull is empty. तुम्हारा जो दिमाग है बिल्कुल खाली है. Absolutely empty. It was Jackson who had spent 2 hours in Ivan's cell and the previous evening, and it was Jackson who had confidently reported that there was nothing hidden there, nothing at all. He says absolutely, because ये जैक्सन ही था जिन्होंने 2 hours spend किए थे इवान के सेल के अंदर the previous evening, and it was Jackson जिन्होंने बहुत confidently report किया था that there was nothing hidden inside there, nothing at all. Then, and yet Ivan had somehow managed to conceal not only a false beard, a pair of spectacles, a dog collar, and all the rest of his clerical paraphernalia, but also some sort of weapon with which he had given McCleary such a terrible blow across the head. Oof. He says कि इतना सब होने के बाद में so confidently you reverted back to me and you told me that sir everything is fine and there is nothing hidden inside his cell, but he says that Ivan had somehow managed to conceal not only a false beard, because वो false beard लगा के उस वहां से escape किया उसने prison से, so he has a false beard, he has a pair of spectacles, he has a dog collar, and also the rest of his clerical paraphernalia and some sort of weapons which he had given McCleary such a terrible blow, एक ऐसा weapon जिससे उसने McCleary को ऐसा terrible blow दिया across the head, and he says it is disgusting. Yes, okay. So now further देखो उन्होंने बोला कि ऐसी कोई चीज, because it was clearly said even he should not have the razor to shave. हो सकता है वो उसको भी किसी गलत तरीके से यूज कर सकता था, है ना. इट कुड हैव बीन, वी कैन से कि वो शार्प हो सकता था, वो कटिंग के काम आ सकता था, कुछ भी वो कट कर लेता. उन लोगों को ये डर नहीं था दैट ही इज गोइंग टू एस्केप फ्रॉम द प्रिजन. उन्हें ये डर था कि अगर हमने ऐसा कुछ छोड़ दिया, टेकिंग द बेनिफिट ऑफ द सिचुएशन, वो कहीं खुद को कुछ नहीं कर ले, बिकॉज ही वॉज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टू बी केप्ट सेफ. So a prison van blocked backed alongside, but the governor made no immediate move. He looked down again at the last line of the German text, to the Headington roundabout, where you go straight over and make your way to the Nuremberg. Newgrave, never heard of it. There was a war grave somewhere near Reading. But he says, no, it was probably a code word. And then it hit him. Newbury, God, yes, Newbury was a pretty big sort of place. But now prison van jo thi, it just backed alongside. But governor did not make an immediate move. वो वहां से हिला ही नहीं. He looked down again at the last line of the German and to the Headington roundabout, जहां पे is going to go straight over and make his way to Newgrange. उन्होंने क्या किया, जो वो लोग कोड्स को ही तो एनक्लोज करते जा रहे थे और उसी से वो उस तक पहुंचने का रास्ता ढूंढ रहे थे. सो यहाँ पे उन्होंने क्या किया, उन्होंने इधर भी वही चीज की. यहाँ पे उन्होंने फिर से वैसा ही एक रास्ता ढूंढा और कोड्स को डिस्क्लोज करते करते वो ये पहुंचे दैट उन्हें हेडिंगटन राउंड अबाउट जाना है, जहां से उन्हें बिल्कुल स्ट्रेट जाना है और वहां से वो न्यूग्राबेन जाएंगे. न्यूग्राबेन वो प्लेस है वेयर ऑन अर्थ, कहाँ है ये वी डोंट नो. उन्होंने बोला न्यूग्राबेन नहीं, इट्स गोइंग टू बी न्यू 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 समथिंग. ये कोड है, न्यूग्राबेन इज अ कोड. नाउ दे से समथिंग न्यू ग्रेव, नेवर हर्ड ऑफ इट. देयर वाज अ वॉर ग्रेव. उन्होंने बोला यस, वॉर ग्रेव नाम की एक प्लेस है समवेयर नियर द रीडिंग, बट no, it was probably a code word or something else. And then suddenly उनको hit हुआ that there is a place named as Newbury. God, yes, Newbury was a pretty big sort of place. उन्होंने बोला Newbury is a very pretty big sort of place, but he rapped out his orders to the driver, St. Aldate's police station, and step on it. Take Jackson and Stephen here, and when you get there, ask for Bell. Chief Inspector Bell. Got that? He leapt the stairs to his office 3 at a time and got the bell on the phone immediately and put the facts before him. We'll get him, sir, said Bell. We'll get him with a bit of luck. And the governor sat back and lit a cigarette. Ye gods, what a beautifully laid plan it had all been. What a clever fellow Evans was, careless leaving that question paper behind. But then they all made their mistakes somewhere along the line. Well, almost all of them. And that's why very, very shortly, Mr. Clever Evans would be back inside doing his once more. उन्होंने बोला, now he immediately rapped his orders to the driver and he says, immediately go to the St. Aldate's police station and step on it. वहां जाते, take Jackson and Stephen here, and when you get there, ask for Bell. चीफ इंस्पेक्टर बेल, गॉट इट? चीफ इंस्पेक्टर बेल थे वहां पे, उनकी बात हो रही थी. Now he leaped the stairs to the office, three at a time, and he got the bell. He got Bell on the phone immediately, and he just put all the facts before him. उन्होंने बोला, sir, do not worry, we are definitely going to get him back, and 110% we will get him with a bit of luck. Governor sat back over there and he just lit a cigarette and he says, "Yet God, what a beautifully laid plan it has been. And what a clever fellow Ivan was." Itna clever tha, but along with being clever, he was also careless because he left the question paper behind, and the question paper was full of the codes that he followed to escape from that prison. So he was a very clever man that he got escape from there, but along with that, he also has one quality, that he was careless because he left that question paper behind. But he says, then what? गलती की उसने. गलतियां कौन करता है? गलतियां तो इंसान करते हैं, and we all human beings standing over here has done one or the other mistake somewhere along the line. But he says that, well, almost all of them, जितने थे ना, सबने कोई ना कोई गलती की थी, and that's why very very shortly he says, Mr. Clever Evans, he is definitely, जितना shortly वो यहाँ से escape किए ना, with that shortly event he is going to be back inside this prison and doing his once more task again, because earlier also 3 times he had done the same things and 3 times he was brought back, and this time also he says that very shortly he is going to be back inside doing his once more task. Now, phone on his desk erupted in a strident burst, and Superintendent Carter informed him that McCleary had spotted Evans during off along Elsfield Way. They had got the number of the car all right and had given chase immediately, but had lost him at the Headington roundabout, and he must have doubled back into the city. No, said the governor quietly. No, he is on his way to Newbury. He explained his reason for believing so and left it at that, and it was a police job now, not his. He was just another good for a gullible governor, and that was all. By the way, Carter, I hope you managed to get McCleary to the hospital all right. Yes, he is in the Redcliffe now, and really groggy he was when he got to the examination offices, and they rang for the ambulance from there, and the governor rang the Redcliffe a few minutes later and asked for accident department. Now suddenly there was a phone ring coming, and we can say the desk erupted in a strident burst. अचानक से phone आया, and when he just picked up the phone, who was there? It was Superintendent Carter, and he informed him that McCleary ने spot किया Ivan को when they were just driving off along the road, and that was Elsfield Way, and they got the number of the car. उन्होंने बोला हमने कार का नंबर ले लिया. We chased it immediately, but almost about the Headington roundabout हमने lost कर दिया उसको, and he must have doubled back into the city, और वो शहर में फिर से घुस गया घूमने के लिए. No, governor says there, because governor वगैरह जो थे वो इससे आगे का कोड ब्रेक कर चुके थे, and he says no. Governor says quietly, no, he has not entered the city, he is on his way to Newbury. And उन्होंने उसको बिलीव करने के रीजंस भी दिए, that why he is so sure that he is on the way to Newbury. It was a police job now. He says देखो ये पुलिस का काम है, not his, तुम्हारा नहीं. And he was just another good for a gullible governor. He says, and you are what? You are just another good for a gullible, and that kind of a governor you are. That was all. He says, by the way, Carter, now it's not your work, it's the police job now, but you just let me know that I hope you have managed to get McCleary to the hospital and he's all right now. So he says, yes, sir, he's at the Redcliffs now, and really groggy he's little. And when we got to the examination offices, they already got ambulance from there. Governor rang the Redcliffs a few minutes later, and he asked for the accident department. And McCleary, you say, yes, he's a person. He says, McCleary, he says, yes, he's a person over here. And he says, I don't think there's anyone. Yes, there is. You will find one of your ambulances picked him up from Elsfield Way. Oh, that, yes, when we sent an ambulance, all right, but when we got there, the fellow had gone. No one seemed to know where he was, just vanished, not a sign. But the governor was no longer listening, and the truth seemed to hit him with an almost physical impact where in his back of the neck. A quarter of an hour later, they found and Reverend Sir McCleary securely bound and gagged in his study in the broad street. He had been there, he said, since 8:15 a.m. when the two men had called. And now dekho, now climax is amazing. And what is the climax? He says, I don't think there is anyone. जब उन्होंने ये बोली ये बात, ध्यान देना यहाँ से, when he says McCleary, you say, he says yes, he's a person. उसने बोला मैकलेरी वहां कहां से आ गया? I don't think there is anyone. Yes, there is, and you will find one of your ambulances picked him up from Elsfield way about. उसने बोला, oh that yes, we sent an ambulance all right, but when we got there, the fellow had gone. No, he seemed to know where he was, just vanished. Not a sign was there. But governor was no longer listening, and the truth seemed to hit him, and almost physical impact somewhere in the back of his neck is seen. And he says, "ये क्या गड़बड़ हो गई?" A quarter of an hour later, उन्होंने देखा that Sir Reverend McCleary, securely bound and gagged in his study in the Broad Street. He had been there, he said, since 8:15 a.m. when two men had called, and that is McCleary तो कब से वहां से गायब थे. Inquiries in Newbury throughout the afternoon produced nothing at all. And by tea time, everyone in the prison knew what had happened. It had not been Evans impersonating McCleary who had walked out. It had been Evans impersonating McCleary who had stayed in. उन्होंने बोला कि इंक्वायरीज जो न्यूबरी में अभी तक की गई, they were all waste. It produced nothing at all. Because by the tea time, everyone in the prison knew that what had happened. अब देखो दो सिचुएशंस थी. एक इवेंस वो देखा गया जिसने मैकलेरी को इम्पर्सनेट किया, दैट इज इन द अपीयरेंस ऑफ मैकलेरी, वो वॉकआउट करके गया. बट समथिंग एल्स हैज हैपेंड. जो वॉकआउट करके गया वो मैकलेरी था, and it had been Evans. He was impersonating like McCleary who stayed in. वो कितनी शान से सबके साथ बाहर निकल के गया है देखो. He actually was Evans. The fish and chips were delicious, and after a gentle stroll round the center of Chipping Norton, Evans decided to return to the hotel and have an early night. A smart new had concealed the wreckage of his closely cropped hair, and he kept it on as he walked up to the reception desk of the Golden Lion. It would take a good while for his hairs to regain its former glories. But what the hell did that matter? He was out again, wasn't he? A bit of bad luck that when Jackson had pinched his scissor, for he had meant a long and tricky operation, and his only razor blade the previous night, but he had all his good luck too. Just think if Jackson had made him take his bobble hats off. Pew, that really had been a close call. Still, old Jackson wasn't such a bad fellow. Now he says कि जो fish है, जो chips हैं, they were delicious. And after a gentle stroll around the center of Chipping Norton, Ivan had decided किया that he is going to return back to the hotel and have an early night. जल्दी सो जाएगा. Smart new hat, it concealed the wreckage of his closely cropped hairs, जिससे कि पता ना चले that who actually he is. And he kept it on as he walked up the reception desk of the Golden Lion Hotel. आपको ध्यान है कोड में एक वर्ड आया था गोल्डन लायन, तो दैट इज द नेम ऑफ द होटल. And it would take a good while for his hair to regain its former glories. And but he says, but what the hell did that matter? फर्क ही क्या पड़ता है? He was out again, wasn't he? उसको इस जेल से बाहर निकलना था और वो निकल गया. Now there was a bit of bad luck and bit of good luck. Bad luck was what? जब जैक्सन ने पिंच किया था सिजर उसको, for it had meant a long and tricky operation, and his only razor blade the previous night. And yes, he had his good luck also. वो कैसे? Just think, if Jackson had made him take his bobble hat off, अगर जैक्सन ने उसकी हैट उतरवा दी होती, the reality had been a close call. तो reality जो थी वो बहुत ही close call होती, मतलब वो देखते तो उसको पता चल जाता ये कौन है. Still, old Jackson wasn't such a bad fellow. उन्होंने बोला देखो भाई जो हमारा जैक्सन है ना, he is not a bad fellow because he is careless, and उसी की carelessness से उसको इतना benefit हो गया. One of the worst thing, funny really, had been the beard. He had always been allergic to sticking plasters, and even now his chin was irritatingly sore and red. Worst thing क्या हुई? And actually it was funny. that ये जो sticking plasters होते हैं ना, he was allergic to it. But when he stuck the beard, so the chin was irritatingly sore and red. Receptionist wasn't the same girl who booked him in, but the change was definitely for the better. As he collected the keys, he gave his best smile, told her he would be bothering without breakfast, and ordered the Daily Express and asked for an early morning call at 6:45 a.m. Tomorrow was going to be another busy day. Now, when he was just off to his room, तो उससे पहले he just went to the reception. एंड रिसेप्शन पे उन्होंने क्या कहा, रिसेप्शन पे उन्होंने, रिसेप्शनिस्ट जो थी, शी वाज नॉट द सेम गर्ल हु जस्ट बुक्ड हर इन, उन्होंने उसको बोला दैट बट ही आल्सो सेज वन थिंग दैट एज शी इज नॉट द सेम गर्ल द चेंज इज डेफिनेटली बेटर. एंड यहाँ पे उन्होंने बोला ही कलेक्टेड द कीज, he gave her his best smile and he just told her that please do not bother me with the breakfast. He ordered the Daily Express and he asked for an early morning call at 6:45 a.m. He says, I need an early morning call at 6:45 a.m. Just wake me up because tomorrow is going to be another busy day. Because tomorrow वो यहाँ से आगे की जर्नी एग्जीक्यूट करने वाला है. He whistled softly to himself as he walked up the broad stairs. He had sort of liked the idea of being dressed up as a minister, dog collar and everything. And yes, it had been a jolly good idea for McLeary to wear two black fronts, two collars. But that top collar, oof, he says that it had kept on slipping off the back stud. And there been one panicky moment when McLeary had only just got his hand up to his neck in time to stop the collar springing apart before Stephen, and they had got that little problem worked out all right. Though a pen stuck in his mouth whenever an evil eye had appeared at the peephole. Easy, but all that fiddling about under the blanket with the black front and a stud at the back of the collar had all been far more difficult than they had ever bargained for. And everything else, he says, had gone beautifully smooth. Though he says that in the car, he found everything they promised to him. He found a soap, he found water, he found clothes, the map. Yes, of course, the map, because the map is the only thing is going to help him. The oddest survey map of Oxfordshire, and he had got some good friends, some very clever friends, Christ up. क्या होता है when your day is good, when your time is good, everything that happens around you is positive and is good for you. So he says that he wished softly to himself as he walked up the broad stairs. And he really liked the idea that he is going to dress up as ministers, dog collar and everything. And he says, yes, it's been jolly good idea for McLeary to wear two black fronts, two collars. But at the top collar, he says, it has just always been slipping off the black stud. And साथ ही साथ में it was a panicky moment for McLeary because he had just got his hand up to his neck in time to stop the collar springing apart. Stephens, and he says yes, they had got the little problem worked out all right though. अब जब भी वो पीप होल में से देखता, there was always found a pen stuck in his mouth. But all these fiddlings are about what? Nothing. The fiddling about being under the black blanket with the black front and a stud at the back of the collar. And that had been far more difficult than they ever bargained for. Now he says everything else had gone beautifully smooth. सब कुछ बहुत अच्छे से गया. In the car, whatever they have promised him, he found everything. He found soap, water, clothes, map. Now when it comes about the map, he says, yes, map. ये क्या था? It was the survey map of Oxfordshire. He says, definitely, I have got some good friends and I have got some clever friends. Christ, I'll always be thankful to you for blessing me with such friends. He unlocked his bedroom door and closed it quietly behind him. And now he just unlocked his bedroom door and closed it quietly behind him, and then stood frozen to the spot like a man who had just a glimpse of garden. Now, साथ ही उन्होंने क्या किया? He just frozen to the spot like a man who had just caught a glimpse of the garden. And sitting on a narrow bed was a very last man in the world that Evans had accepted or wanted to see. उन्होंने बोला, now sitting on the narrow bed was the very last man in the world. वो very last man था in the world that Evans had expected or wanted to see. जब वो अपने रूम में गया, it was a very big surprise because as soon as he opened the bedroom door, and closed it quietly behind him. He was just frozen on the point where he stood. वो जहां था ना, वो बेचारा वहीं का वहीं जम गया. क्यों? बिकॉज जैसे आपको ध्यान है, आप गार्गन का एक पूरा का पूरा, इट वॉज अ ग्लिम्स ऑफ द गार्गन वी कैन से. जब आप ऐसे फ्रोज हो जाते हो, आप एकदम कैसे हो जाते हो, ट्रांसफिक्स्ड हो जाते हो. तो यहाँ पे ऐसा क्यों हुआ? बिकॉज एज सुन इज एंटर्ड द बेडरूम ही फाउंड समबडी lying across the bed. And who was that? It was the last man in the world that Ivan had expected or wanted or to see. वो कौन थे? इट्स नॉट वर्थ ट्राइंग एनीथिंग. इट वॉज द गवर्नर हिमसेल्फ. गवर्नर कोड ब्रेक करके फाइनली पहुंच चुके हैं. एंड ही सेज इट्स नॉट वर्थ ट्राइंग, सेड द गवर्नर क्वाइटली as Ivan's eyes darted desperately around the room. Now, गवर्नर ने कहा कोई फायदा नहीं होने वाला, कुछ भी करो, everything's going to go waste. As Ivan's eyes, it darted desperately around the room. And he says, I have got men all around the place. Well, there was only two, really, but Evans need not know that. अब जब गवर्नर ने बोला that I have posted men all around the place, तुम कहीं से नहीं भाग सकते, कोई ना कोई पकड़ लेगा. But reality में वहां कौन था? Nobody. The governor and Evans बस. He let the words sink in. Women's too. And उन्होंने ये भी बोला, not only men, I have even posted women's also. Didn't you think the blonde girl in reception was rather sweet? उन्होंने बोला तुम्हें नहीं लगता that the blonde girl she was sitting on the reception was rather very sweet one? Ivan was visibly shaken listening to this, and he sat down slowly in only chair the room could offer him, and held his head between his hands. For several minutes there was utter silence. अब इवान वॉज विजिबली शेकन. इवान को देख के पता चल रहा था दैट ही वॉज शेकन, शॉक्ड थे वो. ही सैट डाउन स्लोली इन द ओनली चेयर दैट द रूम कुड ऑफर. एंड दोनों हाथों के बीच में सर होता है ना, कभी ऐसे चिंता में आ जाते तो हम कैसे अपने सर को पकड़ लेते हैं हाथों से, तो उसने वैसे ही उसने पकड़ा इन अ शॉकिंग सिचुएशन. सेवरल मिनट्स देयर वाज अटर साइलेंस. कुछ पल के लिए बिल्कुल शांति हो गई वहां पे. फाइनली ही स्पोक. फाइनली वो बोले, और उन्होंने क्या बोला? इट वॉज दैट ब्लडी करेक्शन स्लिप आई सपोज. ये वो ब्लडी करेक्शन स्लिप थी आई सपोज जो आपको यहां तक ले आई है. वेल देर आर फ्यू पीपल हु नो अ लिटिल जर्मन. उन्होंने बोला यस, वेल देर आर फ्यू पीपल जिनको थोड़ी जर्मन आती है. गवर्नर फेल्ड टू मास्क द डीप सेटिस्फेक्शन इन हिज वॉइस. गवर्नर की वॉइस में जो डीप सेटिस्फेक्शन था ना, ही वांटेड टू हाइड इट बट ही वाज नॉट एबल टू हाइड इट. वो नहीं उसको छुपा पा रहे थे. ठीक है. Now he says slowly, very slowly, Evans relaxed and he was beaten. And he knew it. वो जानता था कि अब वो हार चुका है. Beaten means he has been beaten. That is, he is defeated. हार गया वो. He sat up at last. बैठ गया, अब कुछ फायदा नहीं है. And managed to smile ruefully. और बहुत ही जैसे बोलते हैं ना, एक ग्रीफ वाली सी स्माइल उन्होंने दी, जैसे तैसे मैनेज किया. You know, it wasn't really a mistake. ये गलती नहीं थी. You see, we hadn't been able to fix up any hotel, but we could have worked that somewhere other way. उन्होंने बोला देखो, हम नहीं, we were not able to fix up any hotel, but we could have worked the some other way. No, the really important thing was for the phone to ring just before the exam finished, to get everyone out of the way for a couple of minutes. So we had to know exactly when the exam started. We didn't. उन्होंने बोला देखो, really important thing is that ring just before the exam finished. वहां पे फोन बजा, and just to get out of the way for a couple of minutes, हर किसी को वो रास्ते से हटाने के लिए, that phone call was very simple one. So he says that we had to know exactly when the exam started, didn't we? And he says, and like a fool, I presented you with that little piece of information on the plate. And like a fool, मैंने आपको क्या किया? I just presented you with a little piece of information on the plate. और मैंने वो information आपको, he says कि मैंने आपको information दे दी. Well, somebody did. You see, sir, that correction slip killed two birds with one single stone, didn't it? The name of the hotel for me and exactly the time the exam started. Governor nodded. It's pretty common word. Good job. It's pretty common, sir. And I had never have known where to come to, would I? Nice name though, Zominen Golden and Loin. How did you know which golden loin it was? And there's 100 of them. उन्होंने बोला देखो सर, and like a fool, मैंने खुद ही प्लेट में परोस के दे दिया आपको खुद तक पहुंचने का रास्ता. He says, well, somebody did. एंड सो यू सी सर, वो करेक्शन स्लिप जो थी उसने एक तीर से 9 दोस्त शिकार कर लिया, दैट इज एक पत्थर से 2 चिड़िया मार दी उसने। तो उसने बोला नेम ऑफ होटल फॉर मी एंड एग्जैक्ट टाइम द एग्जाम स्टार्टेड, फॉर एंड फॉर। गवर्नर ने he just nodded and he says that it's a pretty common word and good job, it's a pretty common sir, and I have never have known that where to come to that, would I? And he says it was nice name though, Zoom, Golden and Lowen. Now he says acha theek hai, aap samajh to gate that it's written Golden Lion, but how did you know that which Golden Lion it was? Because there's 100 of them, same as you Evans. उन्होंने बोला बिल्कुल तुम्हारी तरह Evans, index number 313, center number 271, remember 6 figures, and if you take an audience survey map for Oxfordshire, you find that the 6-figure reference 313 oblique 271 lands you bang in the middle of the Chipping Norton. Yeah, you are right, and we did hope you would run off to Newbury, where we did, well that's something I suppose. उन्होंने बोला देखो ये तुमने इंडेक्स नंबर दिया था 313 and your center number was 217, so it's total, remember it's what, it's 6 figures, and you take an audience map for the Oxfordshire and you are going to find that 6-figure reference number 313 oblique 271, it is just going to land you bang in the middle of the Chirping Norton. And he says yes, you are right, bilkul sahi, and we had hoped that you would run off to Newbury, aap Newbury भाग जाओगे हमें पता था. We did. And he says yes, we did hope that. And he says well that's something I suppose. Now he says that yes, this is something that I suppose, and that question paper Evans, could you really understand all that German? I could hardly. Now he says that वो question paper का क्या Evan, मुझे बताओ, ये slip तो तुम्हारे लिए code आया, but did you along with that, did you really understand the German language written in it paper? He says I could hardly understand that. So at this point, we are going to stop it because it's just 2-3 minutes left. So class will get over any moment. Okay, students. So this is all for the class today. And now we are going to meet tomorrow. Okay? Chalo, take care of yourself. Bye-bye.